Hello, hello. Just waiting for this streaming link to finish setting up and we will begin. Okay. Good, we got some audio. We'll make it public. And we begin. Okay. There we go. We can see everything. Whew. Got my ass kicked today. I saw some stuff I wasn't very happy with. And it created this big questioning of a lot of my experience with what's the 3D divine feminine and how there's been a distortion between the divine feminine and divine masculine and how it's skewed my entire life, my experience of love, my experience of women, of union, of intimacy, of sexuality, of all this stuff. And I wanted to talk about it. And it might be a little messy, it might be a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it in the most loving way possible of what I experienced and what I saw. And I just ask that people receive it, see it. How does that fit and sit for them? And we've all got a part in it. And I don't want to lay blame. I just want to say, like, call out the energies and start asking why we're doing these things and why we're hurting each other so badly and why we're needing to control and protect, and how distorted love has become through all of this kind of stuff. So how this began, well, I guess it's been going on for a while, just all these layers breaking down, but I'm in a group with a bunch of beautiful people. We're exploring inner child healing, and a person that was part of the initial group chose not to be later in the group, and they shared a whole bunch of stuff that felt like a lie to me and in the energy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, but they basically gave up on themselves by taking all these societal conditions and basically said, this is my reason why I'm not in integrity to myself and I can't be in space with you anymore. And I just wanted to scream, because it's like, this has become acceptable in this space where people basically say, oh, I had narcissistic parents. Oh, I had this, I had all these wounds, I had all these things. So now I'm too busy trying to heal all this stuff with my family and kids and all this kind of stuff. And instead of focusing on themselves, they just get busy. It's like, I got to work harder. I got to build my business. I got to fix all these wounds. I got to serve them and all this stuff. And I just wanted to hold this person and just hug the shit out of them and say, you got to choose yourself first. You got to choose yourself first. And I could feel it, and maybe it's my divine masculine that's running with that, but it was just like, I really, really, really want to shine the light on how they're kind of hurting themselves by building this story and stating these societally acceptable, staying in your victim kind of things. But I had no way to do that. And then I'm like looking for the people that are responding, that are in feminine bodies, to kind of ask some of these questions. But they comforted her and said, yes, this is my same experience, and yes, it's all okay, and basically supported her in not holding the integrity. And maybe that's different for a man and a woman, but everybody just kind of let it be okay that she was lying to herself. And all that was needed was somebody to gently just say, hey, why are you saying that? Why do I hear victim in these words? Why do I see you hiding? Now, for men to kind of reflect this way for women has been very hard over the last few years. I know I always grew up as, I'm supposed to respect women and I'm supposed to have, I can't remember, chivalry and all these things that were programmed into me. And I had to kind of let the woman slap me in the face or whatever because she was angry, and that was acceptable, or whatever. It was programmed on TV, programmed in stories, programmed in fairy tales, given by my mother and father and their experience. And there's always been this like, women need to be respected more than men. And then it's reinforced by the patriarchy and all these wounds and violence that are happening to women. And it's created this really massive over rotation where it's not safe for me to call out or hold accountable a person, especially in a woman's body. I can do it with men. I can go up to them. I can be aggressive. I can be whatever that men respond to, and that's okay. But anything like that is not acceptable to women. Even though I'm really frustrated or I'm really being disrespected, I'm not allowed to say that truth because that might scare or hurt or cause more wounding or whatever. But it's created this untruth where last week I talked about it in one of my lives. I was interfacing with a woman and she changed her mind, but she didn't do it in an integral way. She made these statements that said she wasn't being honest with herself and she wasn't a yes, even though she said a yes. And then it comes back as I've done something wrong. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. I tried to reflect in the most gentle way and say, yes, it's okay. If she would have said, I changed my mind, I'm not okay with this, it would have been fine. But to do it in this roundabout way where it was kind of like poking me, saying you shouldn't have done that and it's your fault, when she actually said yes 2 times and I asked very gently and other things. So when a woman changes her mind, which is fully acceptable, I'm not standing here saying that women can't do that, but when they've said yes, a woman that's not willing to explain why and wants to hide it and play in that wound, you can take a hike as far as I'm concerned, because I can't comfortably stand in my masculine or stand in a place where I can feel safe reflecting for you. If you decide to change your mind, can you imagine how many times in this world a woman went to the bar with a man and they agreed to have sexuality? It was all yes and everybody was fun. And then the next day when they woke up with a hangover and not feeling comfortable or whatever, that she changed her mind. How can you change your mind on a physical act that happened? Then weird shit starts to happen. They start to justify it, or they talk to their friends. Oh, he got you drunk. He gave you too many drinks so he could take advantage of you. Well, why are you taking drinks and softening your ability to make a decision if there's trauma inside and there's an ability that you might change your mind later? And yes, the man's going in there with some wound and he's got to get wounded and he brought it on himself or whatever by interfacing with a woman. But how do I, as a man, hold a woman accountable to her word when the very definition of feminine is that they can be airy and light and they change their mind and all that kind of stuff? But when I'm taking away my ability to hold her feet to the fire and say, you said this and you agreed, you committed, and then you change your mind after the physical act, that's not physically possible. Or it is physically possible, but you're not in a level of integrity where I can interface with you because your trauma is running the show. How do I step into that and not get potentially physically harmed or imprisoned or a whole bunch of other things? But women reserve this right. It's actually a thing now that women that are sexually aroused, it's a defense in court cases, cannot think for themselves, that they may be modified in some way. How do I interface with that? How do I interface with that? If she's not making sound mind decisions the minute she's excited in her body, how do I hold her accountable? Do I sign a contract that says, okay, by the way, this is, we're agreeing to have sexual intercourse and you can't change your mind afterwards? What do I do? What do I do as a man? What do I do when a woman calls me out in front of other women in public, or they talk amongst themselves and they make some story about me that may be jaded by their own trauma? And then I'm not even allowed to have it. I'm just banned from a group or whatever. You'll say, fuck, there was something wrong with you. You weren't being in integrity or whatever. Fuck no. I walk into every situation in the highest integrity possible, trying to shine light into things, and I trigger people and other things. And the minute I trigger people, they're not comfortable with that. Well, price of admission. If I'm there, I don't call people out on their shit or whatever, but I may be emotional in front of them and that'll trigger them because they have their own wounds. I will be integrity to myself. I'm not like, oh, here's your problem or giving advice or whatever. I'm speaking from my experience, but if they're not okay with that, how do I proceed? I just don't go back after a while because there's no mechanisms. There's no, all the leaders that I've interfaced at this level have more wounding than the people in the group. And you're going to be surprised. The leaders that I've been in the past had lots of flaws. They had lots of darkness, and the light is being shone in. And you'll see leaders that their own traumas are triggered, cannot make decisions for the group. They cannot oversee conflict resolution because their trauma will create it. I've had situations in Tantra groups where I've done really deep sexual healing work, and they went and talked to the leaders and their trauma was exposed. And I got something back that wasn't even part of my experience with the person. It was the leader's experience. And they were unloading because that was okay. It was too scary to directly address someone that was doing it. So I'm walking vulnerably in my experience, trying to be my fullest expression. I'm trying to interface with women. And a lot of women will come back and say, oh, you're broken or you're not comfortable or whatever. Fuck you. That stuff is going on inside of you. And if you're going to call that name to me, you're calling it to yourself. I don't go into situations blindly, just blubbering my trauma around people. I go in with laser-like precision and stuff shows up and I will work through it in the moment. I may cry, I may not feel comfortable or whatever. And people don't want to do that for themselves. They're scared shitless of being around that, but they're choosing because my light is bright and they like that. And I'm not blaming, I'm just saying, look at the way you deal with yourself in those situations, and to come out the other situation and you have to blame someone else because you couldn't handle your shit. I've suffered a lot from that, of being light. It's just so funny. I'm watching the frickin' lives over here and everybody's dropped off. Nobody's interested in this energy. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying it's become acceptable to do bullshit like this because people aren't being held in integrity. And I see these situations happening. These women groups don't want men to have men incorporated them because it's all sisters and stuff. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say it right here. With what I've seen of women that are in these, there's a lot of supporting, validating, wounding, pain, suffering. It's not about holding in integrity what the real story was, going into the wound of the person. They'd rather sit in the muck of this perpetual bullshit that's going on. And I can't do that. To have a group that's segregated between men and women because women's are more important. There's 1,000 to 1 women's groups to men groups I see out there. And some of them I've been called to join in, and the women are just like, oh, well, let me see kind of thing. And it's only if you're a really good divine masculine, we'll allow you in there or whatever. How the fuck are we going to heal the divide between these groups if we don't get really real on stuff and handle what shows up, handles the conflict in an integral way, give triggers training, get people held in accountability in these circumstances, see the reflection through another's eyes from the opposite polarity. But if you want to get a whole bunch of women in a group trying to be women when they've all been trained very masculine and in their control, how do you get back to the balance if you can't see the polarity? If you can't see somebody reflecting the other side and reflecting some of these things that help us all heal? And I'm not exposing this or trying to piss off women. I love women so much and I want to feel comfortable and safe. And that doesn't come just by me healing my mother wounds and all this kind of stuff. It comes from me seeing that shit, seeing it reflected through the very women that are out there, and a good percentage are causing these mother wounds. They're the result of these mother wounds themselves, their own mothers, narcissism, codependency, massive attachment, hooking into men, fucking over men on a regular basis so that they're like cowed little puppies. And then they run around and say, where have all the good men gone? Where are the guys that I really love? No, you like the biker dudes that take for themselves and smack you around. And then you bitch and complain because they weren't serving you. Well, that's when it's that over rotated. That's all those men do. Why does that feel good? What about a man that can see your heart and ask questions, goes vulnerable, has some tears, maybe both of you get uncomfortable from it? I'm going to tell you right now, when you open up to a man to let him be his fullest self-expression, he can be that rock. He can hold you and say, what the fuck are you saying right now? Why are you blaming me? It's your past. It's your boyfriend, past boyfriends. It's your whatever. I can do that. But I can be an intense lover. I can be a giver and a receiver. I can dive deep and look at anything that shows up in your world and hold space for that. Those biker dudes and those guys that get you all off and then they're abusing you in 2 weeks or a month, those are the wrong men. Those have their own wounds. The frickin' divine masculine that's coming out now can hold space for anything. He can sit there, but he needs permission and he needs you to be accountable. He needs you when you say stuff that's blaming or shaming or hurting. I should be able to reflect that back and say, this is how it felt when you said that. And yes, my mother did that to me. Probably your mother did it too. It's become acceptable, but I can't have it be acceptable or else I can't hold space for you. I can't hold you in that container because when your pain gets too much, you're going to hack and slash and you're going to try and wound me so I go away because that's our old wounds. I don't want that for anyone anymore. I, in the work that I've done, want to shine an intense light on what the fuck is going on, get deeply intimate in our words and our vulnerability in sharing emotion and stuff that's uncomfortable so we can connect deeper and we can deal with deeper shit. And then when the container kind of smashes open in the middle of sexuality or during a fight or whatever, we can hold each other in integrity and say, holy fuck, why are you saying that? Why? This is really hurting. Not taking it personally, but saying, you've given me permission to call you out or shine some light on some shit. And I don't want to be wounded or hacked and slashed or go back into my wounds that have been programmed in me to say, never say anything harsh or direct to a woman. I want to say those things. I want you to say the same thing, but I want to hold you in integrity. Because sometimes it's a wound against their past partner. Sometimes it's a wound against whatever. I may do that same thing, but without that permission to be able to say, this feels off. What the hell's going on? This is really hurting me. I'm going to cry. If it's like, oh, well, I get to change my mind or I get to whatever, whenever I want without saying, well, I need to change my mind because my little girl's screaming at me and saying, I don't feel safe. I can understand that. Why is your little girl feeling safe? Why do you need to change your mind when you said yes twice before? How am I supposed to trust you if I can't trust your yes? These are all parts of what's become acceptable. I'm seeing in women's groups in society where it's like you can change your mind to protect yourself and all this kind of stuff, where the only protection is going to come is if we get deeply vulnerable. This scares me. I don't feel comfortable with that. I need to put a boundary. I need to consciously feel safe saying my yes and no's. I can deal with that all day long. And it's powerful and it's fun and it's sexy and brave and courageous. And we're growing in each moment. But if we just sit there and say, oh, I'm scared, I can't commit to sexuality, or I can't, this is too scary, or you're about to do something and you're changing your mind because your body is saying a hard no, say it. It's like, holy crap, my body's like this and I don't know what to do. And I'm going to have to say no for a minute. And it's like, absolutely. Let's stop. I'm going to step back. Let's talk about it. But in the old way, it's like smash and grab and crash so that nobody talks. And that intimacy is lost in a second because we just put our shields up and it's like, holy fuck, I don't want to do this. But the divine masculine, when it's truly there, he's going to say, holy crap, I see you. I'm going to step back, breathe. What's going on? And the true divine feminine does that too. She nurtures a man. When I get emotional, when I get scared or whatever, it's like, hey, what's going on? Hey, put your head in my lap for a minute and tell me. And I want to hear you cry so it all comes out. And then I feel safe in that place. But how can I feel safe if I haven't even felt nurtured sometimes by my mother? Boom, wounds, you got wounds too. These are all there. Might have been nurtured from your father. Maybe you're dealing with a father figure issue and you want this man to come in and he's messing with your boundaries. Well, a first chance of a man that's saying, do you want to continue? I feel your body. It's feeling tight. I can do that. Where those biker guys are like, oh, let's just push through this and let's get done it because I got to go have a beer or whatever. And they're like finishing and don't even know what the woman wants. Did she even have an orgasm? Can she read to her energy? Is she safe enough to feel and say something? This is the new masculine and feminine, to go in deep and rub up against the edges that are scary and make us change our mind and like traumas and stuff, and then feel them in our partner's body and say, "Ooh, that's scary, that's deep." But instead of fuck off, you're an asshole, or whatever, some stupid thing that we say to just hack and slash people, and we traumatize them so that we don't have to look at our own shit. What do you want going in? You have to make a choice. If you're coming into a man and he's a conscious man, and I read all this stuff about making a choice with a conscious woman is about smashing yourself open, the same thing goes for a man. If a woman truly wants to be her woman, she's going to have to let some of her masculine go back. Otherwise, I got to match at equal and opposite. So if she's very masculine, I come in at feminine, and then she's pissed off because I'm not holding her space for her. But her warrior is way stronger than mine, and it becomes almost a dick fight. It's like, how do I deal with this when I'm trying to respect her, but she's not open to communication? She's not open to receiving how I felt and other things. So we end up with this clash of a very masculine woman that's society's required, and a man that's trying to be masculine and trying to step into that role and not knowing how he can do that. What we need is the woman to feel safe, give permission to the man, say, hey, I want you to be more masculine. I'm going to surrender back. I haven't done this before. It's going to be a little messy. I'm scared. Can you step in? I want you to hold space for me. Be really direct. Ask me questions so that I feel safe. Maybe be a little bit dominant. Maybe whatever. There's tons of play that we can do where I can start to step into my full masculine. The man can step into his full masculine, and then the woman can start to practice dipping her toe into surrender. What does surrender feel like? What does surrendering my whole body feel like? What does sex, where I'm not driving and I'm not watching and trying to lead it or whatever, and it's like, okay, the man's responsibility is to give himself pleasure, and the woman's responsibility is to give themselves pleasure, and then come together and then talk and ask and not make it like, I got to give you an orgasm because I'm a man, or you got to take me as it is, or accept penetration. This is all bullshit by porn and all these other kind of things. We need to have a conscious communication and to talk and an intimacy where bodies open and things start to get comfortable. It's like, oh, maybe this is the guy. Maybe he can be more masculine for me. I invite you to be more masculine. I invite you to step into the penetrative role. I'd love women to say this. And then I'm going to feel safe. And then if something comes out, I can say, you asked me to be penetrative. You asked me to do these things. You can't blame me afterwards that I took too much, or I was too aggressive, or I was too sexual, or you didn't talk to me, or whatever, because it's owned by both. And when you go in and say, okay, we're both going to consciously say what we want before we even start. Hey, this is the sexuality I want. This is what I'm scared of this. Don't do that. And you set just like a little container. And then all of a sudden it's like you get to the end and then you decompress afterwards. You say, hey, that was good. Oh, you felt a little nervous, or I felt you holding back or whatever. What was that? Can we talk about it? And I leave it open to have a discussion tomorrow. If anything comes up, because trauma comes up and things bubble, don't go talk to your girlfriend about it. Come talk to me. Come talk to me, because I just was deeply intimate and I don't want somebody else's trauma splashed into it. I want to hold you and be that container and feel safe that you can tell me anything, because that just opens the intimacy portal deeper and deeper, so that the depth and the healing and the moving of energies becomes massive. But in our old world, it's all about protection and putting rules and labeling and smashing each other because something gets uncomfortable. Well, uncomfortable is awakening. Uncomfortable is healing. Uncomfortable is expressing our traumas with somebody that we've opened our whole body to, our whole soul, all of our thoughts, all this kind of stuff. We should find a way to be more comfortable, to negotiate an agreement with that person and say, I'm going to get really vulnerable with you. And I really, really need you to keep this confidential because it scares me that maybe my friends or whatever will be there. And a man can hold that. And a man in his full divine masculine is going to hold on to that. And that's like, because that's what holding space is. That's what confidence is. That's what comfort is. That's what holding a container so that anything can be dealt with in that moment. This is where we're moving to, but we have this flighty bullshit that's going on where everybody's reserves the right to change their mind so they don't have to face their shit. And I, as a man, can't be safe in that container. I have to ask a woman to honor her word. I have to ask a woman to be in integrity, what she says, and be accountable. And if that feels uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but I put up with it too long. And a lot of men have. And we're sitting back trying to find a way to satisfy all their needs when really what I read underneath all this, where have all the good men gone? They want to be able to surrender and they want to be able to trust. So how do we build surrender and trust? We start to be really vulnerable. We start to talk. We start to deal with the shit that shows up in the moment, make agreements that says, fuck, we're going to talk about this, even if it's messy, it's a rape, it's something that you don't feel comfortable. Because a man that's in his divine masculine will hold space for that. He will sit with you and hold your head and cry with you and just listen if that's what you ask. He'll even try and fix. That's a mistake that men do sometimes. Over time, just say, I just want to be heard. And we'll sit there for an hour and we'll cry with you and all the things that are deeply emotional. Look at that biker dude. Is he going to do that for you? He's going to be like, no, I'm going on and having a beer. That's what the divine masculine does. But we need some permission, because every time we've reached out and tried in the past, it was misread, or it was like, oh, that feels icky, or that's uncomfortable, or you didn't ask my permission, or some shit that's going on in the head. It's like, no, who am I going to trust? I'm going to build a container with this person. And if you're willing to have sexuality with a person, it's fucking time to build a container before you start. Don't just go into this hollowly with a whole bunch of expectations and then, oh, they're not met by the end of it. And you just walk away and we just wasted our time. But come into the container and say, okay, this is a person I'm attracted to. This is a person I want to be sovereign with. Build a relationship container. Instead of dating and playing all these games, build a 3-month relationship container. And I'm going to talk about this in a future live. It'll be in my awakening group, Awakening Through Sexuality. Go in and make a commitment to a person for 3 months where you cannot leave and you got to deal with everything that shows up, and you'll go that full period and you have a choice at the end of the 3 months. Oh, this isn't working out or whatever, but you got to communicate to the other person what happened, and they're going to communicate to you, and you're going to get a reflection from a beautiful person that's seen every part of your body, seen all your wounds, seen all your suffering, seen you yelling and screaming in both directions. And there's tools in it to say, okay, we keep our own houses. Yeah, we come together, we sleep at each other's place and have sexuality and all these kind of things. And when we get really triggered, we don't deal with it in that moment. We wait 24 hours. We take a deep breath and say, oh, holy shit, you triggered the frick out of me. I'm going to go over here back to my house and we're going to have a conversation in 24 hours and come back and say, frick, you triggered my parents. Oh, you triggered a bunch of shit. And guess what? You're going to be able to look underneath it and then hear that person. And he's going to say, holy frick, my mother did the same thing, or my dad did the same thing. This is powerful. And you're going to start going through it. You're going to find out at the end of this that attraction is literally vibrationally your wounds lining up with another person. And you're going to be really attracted to them because they have the medicine, they have the ability and the understanding to be able to get some positive result out of this by us crashing into each other. But in this world, it's like, oh, that first sex didn't feel good or didn't work out or he was crying or whatever. Do you freaking know that he was crying? Maybe because you healed something. Some mother wound came up and it moved through, but you're judging it and saying that. Would you not love to have that man hold space while you're crying and screaming at the same time? We pass all this shit off like, oh, this was icky or whatever. Honestly, things like sexuality, it takes 3 times before you're going to start to get comfortable with a person, because you're looking over body shaming and past wounds and all these things until you know that other person's body, and until you open your shields a little bit so you can go, you're not really going to feel that level of intimacy. So why not build a container with a person, set some really simple agreements, talk about what you want before you go in, and then follow it. But instead, we just keep crashing through partners and going through 6 marriages and not doing our inner work. And then we're angry and blaming the other gender all the time. It's disgusting. And it is not the way it was meant to be. It's all banged up with darkness and things inverted and twisting. And I'm just trying to get some clarity in here. Being able to change your mind or be above things or blame the other gender or whatever all requires some level of integrity. Okay, I'm changing my mind because this is this. It's not like I reserve the right to have emotions and go outside. Well, then you're not for me, and you're probably not at the level where the intimacy is going to be. And it's fine, go do it, but don't blame me and say, oh yeah, you pushed me too hard, or why are you holding me accountable? Well, I fucking need you to be accountable so that we can both be safe. Because if I'm not accountable, I'm screwed as a man, and men are held to their accountability, their word. Women are like, oh, he promised and he never followed through. This new masculine is trying his best to meet it, and it's fucking bitching hard. It's impossible sometimes when world's changing, money's changing, people are having traumas and triggers showing up. So I have to do a lot of talking and say, hey, I'm changing my mind because I'm not feeling it. And I had a friend today and she's sick and we're supposed to meet tomorrow or whatever. And she's terrified that she's wasting my time because now I can't come and I set a schedule or whatever. Well, now that I've heard that, I can say, who's choosing you? Your body's sick. If you don't say no, how do I trust that you're going to say something when it's even darker or whatever? You're always going to say yes to me, and then you're going to feel violated and injured and all this kind of stuff. I don't want that. I want to choose me. Oh, I'm sick today, or oh, I had a really hard night and I'm going to really have to cancel it. But I promise we'll do it again in a couple of days. That hard night happens. Just being vulnerably honest and risking that they're going to be mad or whatever. But at least I self-loved myself. I said, oh, my body's saying no. But how often do we say yes when we should have said no? So this is all the little shit where we're going past pleasing and going past all these things that we were programmed into us to try and make us feel safe, to be able to trust ourselves. Hey, my body's screaming no. So it's like, I'm going to have to say no right now. And I realize I promised, and I'm being really vulnerable. Ask me anything you want about it. It's nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. And I'm saying no. But if you say, well, I'm not sure, I'll see what I feel in the morning or whatever, just say it. Yeah, I don't see it coming. But give me 2 days and I'll see it coming. And you can't read anything into it. It's like, oh, does she really like me? Is she really just doing this stuff and there's an inside no or whatever? How do I know all that? But if I get into that story, it'll just kill me. And I don't want any part of that. So I shared really vulnerably and really deeply. A part of me wants to say I apologize for being direct, but I don't. And it looks gritty and painful, but I think women need to see the man's perspective of what's going on inside his mind, how he's feeling uncomfortable, how he's not feeling safe by all this stuff. And I'd love if women could just look at it and say, okay, yeah, I've been part of that. I've seen that. Okay, that explains why men are pulling back or they're not committing or whatever. How many women give permission to a man? You just make us blindly prove ourselves and find it. And it feels really scary and icky, because when we're proving ourselves, you can choose whatever the fuck you want. You can walk away. We've given our heart. We've tried to show everything. We don't know where we stand almost ever, because women love that and feel in control. And it's like, oh, well, it's like, if he's not worthy enough to work through this or whatever, then he's not worthy to be inside my body or something. The bullshit that I hear, that women come back for freaking shaming men and making them feel unwanted, badly rejected. Those are traumas that men walk around with. And I really love that women that are exploring this and feeling integral and stuff like that, how often do you reject men openly without giving them something? Or you track them in and you know what they want and you like the feeling of it, but eventually you just kind of stop talking to them and walk away. Where's the integrity in that? And women reserve the right to do this because they got to stay safe or I had a woman that I went to go rent a property from a room, and she's all in, excited, happy. Oh, I'd love to do that or whatever. And then the next day when I phoned to sign the agreement, she wouldn't even answer the phone. I even went and knocked on her door, and I'm sure she was terrified in that. But where was the integrity in this? This was a woman that was a law enforcement officer that was that scared of me, but she said yes and made it seem like everything was okay to my face. And I could have, at any moment, she could have said, I'm not feeling it, or as we're walking out the door, and then I wouldn't have wasted a whole bunch of time. But this is acceptable in society so women can feel safe. Fuck, you want to make a man angry, be that fucking unintegral all the time, and then expect men to treat more women with integrity. I walk in wide open, helping, loving, all this kind of stuff, but I've been trashed by more women I can count for being really open and whatever. And I almost always never get any reason why. They just seem to love to do it, and I trigger them or it scares them. And that's fucking unacceptable. Would you accept that, women, from men? And yes, you're going to have your own wound. And yes, men have treated you badly and they sent you dick pics and all this kind of shit. But have you had a real man that came in, was vulnerable, was open, was trying his best to step out of having to be feminine all the time, and wanted a woman that could say, hey, I want the divine masculine here, and it's going to be a little bit messy. Let's talk. And I feel something different in your heart. And I feel you making a difference, being accountable, holding himself in integrity, and then holding you to that same integrity. That's the man you want. And I feel this collective divine feminine, oh, that's not okay, or whatever, sorry. But it is okay. We've got to step out of this bullshit where we're overprotecting and we're not surrendering, and men can be in integrity and give us a chance to be there. And the way you protect yourself, yeses and nos that are true to you, and communication. And I'll communicate. If I'm not communicating enough, call me on it. I want to be able to call you on it without the woman saying, oh, geez, you're too hard, or you're too direct, or whatever. No, life is a direct contact sport, and we need people to be really true and really integral. And men are trying their best. And yes, there's a bunch that aren't, but there's a shitload that are. All those besties that you have that are men that are sitting in the shadows, and you know they're attracted to you and all this kind of stuff, those are your divine masculines. Those are the ones that are waiting for an entry point so they don't destroy their friendship, but they have enough integrity. They've held you, they fixed your stuff, they've come over and supported you in the night or whatever. There's millions and millions of men that are there just waiting for an invitation. And I'm one. I don't got this all figured out, but I'm fed up with the old way, and I'm ready for a new way. And anybody that wants to engage at that level, it's going to be beautiful, because we're going to figure shit out. We're going to be direct and vulnerable, and magic's going to happen. But we both got to be willing to come in and take the masks off and make agreements. I'm scared about this. This isn't feeling good. And then something beautiful happen. That's what the 3 months relationship container I'm talking about is. Instead of dating, go in and find somebody that you really want to connect with and you feel safe with. And the beautiful stuff is going to show up. And it's time. And if I don't talk vulnerably about how I feel hurt and wounded and mangled up by the actions of my opposite polarity women, and this is a direct call, how do I heal? I don't go into a men's group with a bunch of other men that have the same programming. I don't go into a woman's group where there's no balance. I go and ask a partner to approach with me, and we both be integral to each other, and we call each other on the violations and stuff like this. This doesn't come by me sitting in a temple doing work with my mother and cleaning all the wounds. This comes from direct, beautiful interaction with a woman that wants to engage, gives an invitation, say, this is scary as hell, but I really want to open, and I want to do my inner work, and I want to do my inner work, and we both get a reward. And it's beautiful. It's gritty, it's messy, somebody's going to cry, guaranteed every time. Maybe there's going to be anger, there's going to be other stuff, but fuck, at the end, there's a connection and an intimacy, and we then trust all those parts again. So I thank you for listening. I don't blame anybody, but the programming, the shit that's going on underneath all this kind of stuff has twisted us, and we're unconsciously doing it all day long. And it's got to stop. And somebody's got to call it out. And I'm choosing to do it, whether people like me or love me or not, because this is what my inner parts of me, my inner feminine, my inner masculine has to say, because we're so fucking out of balance. Nobody's winning and we're destroying each other. So who's ready to step up? Who's ready to be vulnerable? Who's ready to welcome a partner in, say all in, I'm ready. Yeah, this might be scary. And then going there and being deep, holding that 3-month relationship container I talked about, so that we can heal. We can move through our shit and we can decide if this person's somebody that I want to have in the rest of my life. Not taking 1 date, 2 date, goes 15 dates and talk about grandmothers and all this kind of shit. No, really being integral and integrating with a person and staying over with them and playing sexuality with them in whatever way that feels safe, and magic will happen. So I love you all. Thank you, Pamela, for your hello. And I hope this helps. I hope this goes into our soul so that we can release this, because I'm dying running around in this old way and all this bullshit. And I'm sure you are too. Who's ready to make the change? And I hope it's you. So have a good day. I love you. And I love you all. And we'll talk soon. Bye.